Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios and brought to you by official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international war-ring author Mia Molson's The Missing, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. We're here with a terrific gentleman who's a singer-songwriter from Star Prairie, Wisconsin, and you wonder where it's at. Well, you're not going to believe where it is. With 26,000 monthly listeners on Spotify and featured in the Minds Behind Music with Tommy Tika, he began a project writing original songs and making into records, collaborating with a number of various musicians and quite well known, fairly known in the industry, and also producers from LA to London to bring the songs to life. And began the guitar at 52, and we're gonna the great story about that. He released Fight or Flight as part of the project with Reality Check Time, Visions of War, and everything else, Sweet Revenge. And he's got a brand new release, which is called New Day at Dawn. We'll be playing a couple of singles at the end of the audio interview, and he's got some great stories to tell. Live, ladies and gentlemen, plus dudes in beautiful Star Prairie, Wisconsin, the multi-talented singer-songwriter from that area with the Star Prairie Project. Ladies and gentlemen, the multi-talented Nolen Chu. Nolen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you on board, Nolen. So you're a singer-songwriter from Star Prairie, Wisconsin, with 26,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, feature on Minds Behind the Music with Tommy Tika. You began the project writing original songs and making into records, collaborating with various musicians, producers from LA to London, bring the songs to life. You began guitar at 52, and you also had a previous album, which is Fight or Flight with Reality Check Time, Visions of War, and more. You have a new release called New Day at Dawn. And before we talk about your project and before we talk about how you got started, and tell us where exactly is Star Prairie, Wisconsin?
Star Prairie, Wisconsin's in far western Wisconsin. It's near the Minneapolis-St. Paul metropolitan area. Probably it's 40 miles from Menominee, 20 miles from Hudson. Used to be a rural farming area. It's now becoming more of a community, bedroom community of the cities nowadays.
Mm-hmm. And of course, it's also booming as well too. And before we talk the Star Prairie Project, and you released New Day at Dawn, and of course, beginning guitar 52. Now, tell us how you exactly first got started, Nolan.
Well, I really got started on a whim. Uh, in Star Prairie, which is a village of a little over 500 people, there's an old general store on the corner. And a gentleman that called himself Star Prairie Jerry bought it. And he did a jam on Thursday nights, and local musicians would come. And we'd jam out in the patio and play different music. And at that time, I didn't play guitar. I had no music background, not even choir and band in high school. I remember my father telling us kids, us Jews, we don't have any musical background. You can forget. I just think he didn't want me playing any instruments in the bedroom. But I just never thought that I had any musical talent. I was a very avid music listener my entire life. But back to the story. On the Thursday nights, I'd sit up front, and I was sort of the photographer for the group at that time. I'd take pictures, and then I'd print them out, and we'd put them on Facebook afterwards, 25, 40 shots and stuff. But I would watch the musicians play up close, and it was amazing at how they did it and what they did, and it was totally Greek to me. And I never had any inkling I could learn it, or even a desire really to try it. But on a whim, on my 52nd birthday, I was at a flea market with my wife, and I bought a $25 used K guitar. It was a guitar that was sold in Sears, and it was just all beat up. It was perfect because I couldn't hurt it much. And I never really thought I'd play it. I'd just sit in the corner and get dust. But I started bringing it to the jam, and I started trying to play along. And then I took some guitar lessons, and I knew right away when I started taking guitar lessons that I wanted to write songs. because my instructor would give me a song to learn, and I'd come back next week and I'd taken the song, totally dissected, swapped the chord progressions all around, come up with my own words, and I gave him my new song. And I said, let's work on it. And I've never seen anything like you before. Well, and and so I took music lessons from a high school teacher in town, and she taught me music theory and some basics to songwriting. And I thought it was the coolest thing because I would write out these songs and put the lyrics to them. And then I would take her to her. And in the beginning, it was singing lessons with do your warm-ups and watch how you sing your INGs to, well, heck with all this. Let's just work on my songs. And so she ended up working. And so she'd get on the piano and I'd come with a melody sketched out, and I'd bang it out for her. She'd join in on the piano and she'd say, well, this chord arrangement is good, but if you took these chords and put them in this order and explain the numerical system, what a 1-4-5 is, for example, that's pretty basic for a musician in terms of notes and chords. But I knew right away that, number one, the music sounded much, much better when it was accompanied by somebody who could sing and play. and I could sing some and I could play, and I played at the jam, my tunes, but I never considered myself a singer-songwriter. Star Prairie Jerry came up to me one night after I performed, and he said to me, Nolen Chew, the next John Denver. And I went, no, man, Nolen Chew, the next Alan Parsons. Because I had no desire to be a singer-songwriter. I couldn't sing good enough, and I couldn't play good enough, but I could write songs. And so that's where I found my talent was. Well, at the Star Prairie Jam, a group of musicians that hung out there was one gentleman who had a homemade music studio in his basement.
Wow.
And he had a system set up, and he'd worked in the Twin Cities at a couple studios. So, he knew what he was doing at a pretty, basic level. Mm-hmm. And I'd go over to his house after work, and we'd start to record my original songs, and we'd get the musicians from the Star Prairie Jam to be our singers and session musicians.
I like that.
And so it was, and we put out an album this was 2014, called Jam It. And we made 50 copies, ran off 50 copies of the CD, put them in plastic jewel cases, printed out a cover, and I sold out my first print of 50. Of course, it was mandatory to friends and family, but we sold all 50 of them. So I said, hey, this is great.
And you sold out 50? How long did it take you?
Well, we had a release night, and they were pretty much all gone there, because you know how it is with relatives.
Quick, huh? Wow.
You know how it is with relatives. Well, why don't you buy 3?
Oh my goodness. Just make sure they don't resell them on eBay for like triple the price. Make sure they don't do that on you.
Well, some of those songs I've actually, there's one of the songs that was on that album that's on New Day at Dawn. I wrote a bridge to it and kind of rearranged it. It's the last song on the album called Do You Remember? And so some of those songs still, survive. But after that, we did an album that I actually, we produced called Visions of War. It had 16 songs on it. And I released it on Spotify and Apple. I got a distributor. And then we sat back and watched nothing happen for a month. When you look and check the streams and you've got 125 streams. And again, it's all friends and family. You realize that.
you have a good support system. Think about that way. You have a really good support system. Some people can't even get their dog to listen. So
exactly. So it dawned on me that it got to a point where it was like, are we just going to, keep this little local recording thing with friends and families and the jam members and have fun with it, or do we want to try to take this project to a level where we can sell records and we can create a brand, we can create a name, and can actually move some music. And in order to do that, you you know, you had to hurt some feelings of some local musicians, and because you're looking for a certain level of quality,
Mm-hmm.
and and so I'd written a song. We got a couple of singers to try to sing it. It didn't work. I couldn't sing it myself, and so that day I got an email from Spotify,
Mm-hmm.
and it said, we just opened up a company called Sound Better that you might be interested in, that provides a whole range of studio services to
Oh,
an
wow.
independent artist like this. You want
Sound
backup
better.
singer, we'll
That's
give you back.
interesting. Wow.
It's the technology, it's the way we live. The entire Star Prairie Project is virtual. We have never met each other. I
How do
got
you
a
like
group
that?
in Portugal that I'm working with right now on an album. Rudiker's out of LA, Ivy's out of Lexington. This whole thing at that level started with the pandemic, because shortly after. So I found this Sound Better company, and at first I said, well, I put in a bid for a lead singer. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
somebody to sing the song, and so I put in a bid, and Rudiger came back with a bid, and Marcella Vieira, and I I picked Marcelo to do this song. Was a harder rock song, and then I told Rudiker, I got something else for you. So with
Mm.
both these guys, I was just giving them songs uh, to seed the vocals, and then he'd send us back the mixed wave tape, and then we'd take it and mix it and master it, and because that's the way it works these days. It's all wave files, and if you can operate and execute the wave files, you can do as many layers as you want, and it doesn't matter who puts in what layer. You know, you can put in the drums here, the vocals here, the guitar over there, and you do a whole project all the way around the world, which is what I did practically with one song. I had 8 musicians in London, Portugal, LA, and Kentucky building
Wow.
this song, and it was amazing. And it was amazing how, because artists are artists, and they just want to make music, and they just want to make it better. And but after I did a couple of vocals, both of these individuals, a world apart, came back to me and said, you know, your stuff is really good. Your music is really good. Why don't you ditch the basement setup and let's make major record label songs?
Nice.
I got a team. We'll produce them. Um, we'll do the instrumentation and vocals. You write the song. You do a demo tape of you and the guitar playing it. Send me the music, and I'll take the next step. And
Nice.
it turned, when I first got the first song, Sophia, back from Marcella, I almost fell over in my chair. It was that, and that's what, when I said I didn't want to be a John Denver, because that's what I had. I didn't have in my mind a guitar track and a vocal track. You
Mm-hmm.
know, what I had in my mind is what the Beatles did when they quit touring, and what they were doing in Rubber Soul and Revolver and everything from that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when they were studio artists at that point, what Alan Parsons did, what Steely Dan did, all these were recording artists. Steely Dan never toured after 1974, and they put out the first album. All of that music that we heard was all records, all
Mm-hmm.
radio, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's what the Star Prairie Project is. And so after a while, I developed a group of artists. Rudiker knew Ivy, and then Marcelo knew Ricardo Dick, and Ricardo Dick's girlfriend is one of the best singers and sopranos of Europe. And it was, and but it was crazy because, you know, I didn't know what I was doing. the bliss of ignorance. I was whipping out these songs and I didn't have any rules or boundaries because I really didn't understand them yet.
No.
And so I'd write a song like Old Dirt Road. And in those days, when I wrote that song, that's all I knew how to play was open cowboy chords. G, C, D, F. I think I threw in a minor. And so it was a nostalgic song. So it turned very quickly into a country song. And I remember after I wrote it, Jerry said to me, "That's a country song." And I went, "Wow, that is," but I never sat down to write it. It came out a country song. And then I wanted a harder edge and a harder rock. And I can't play lead guitar to the level that needs to be done. And so Rudiker says, "Oh, I play piano and I do lead guitar. I can do that too."
Nice.
And so it was like a match totally made in heaven. And Marcelo and Ricardo Dick and Sandrine in Portugal, they have an incredible hard rock flair. They have a group of their own, the Battlers, which is really big in Spain and Portugal. But these are seasoned musicians who, and that's the beauty of the project. It's like when I was working the early days of the project, it was like, "I need a keyboard player, please, keyboard player."
Cowbell, cowbell. Who else can play cowbell?
Yeah, exactly. Because I wanted but with these guys, it's like Rudiker plays keyboard, Ivy plays keyboard, Ricardo Dick plays keyboard, and it's like 4 lead guitars, 8 keyboards, 2 sound engineers. They all produce, and it's like incredible amount of talent. And to take nothing from some and create something out of it is just the grace of God. And it's the beauty of music, and it's the beauty of people with a passion to do something and the urge to create. And we don't have any egos, and our rules are always what's best for the song. And it's like sometimes my demos, when they're done, they look unrecognizable to what I set out. Sometimes pretty much exactly what the first, through the process, it goes in different ebbs and flows and up different tributaries, and developed really multi eclectic sound, different type of progressive rock, classic rock, Americana, folk, country, and even indie pop. And it was like, I'm playing this to people and they're going, "Nolen, you're not going to put that acid rock song next to that love ballad with that indie pop song on there." And that was shining a little light. And I said, "But good music is good music. And I want to try it. Right. I want to try it specifically because nobody would do that. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And you know it doesn't work. All you got to do is listen to it, and you can tell when something works or something doesn't work. But you have to explore and think outside of the box. And we're always challenging ourselves with new ideas. And there's no pride of authorship. It's just, okay, your turn, you take it, and
there you go.
In the end.
I think that's a really good thing as well too. And of course, you know, the guy referring as John Denver, he must have been a Rocky Mountain High, you could say. So
yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're here with Nolen Chu and the Star Prairie Project. We'll talk about his latest with New Day at Dawn, also Fight or Flight as well too. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition rate. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960, or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give an official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international war ring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Zia, available on Amazon paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, one target, where truth is illusion and those who love be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Zia has got great reviews. And Eve 11 enjoys by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassie, Forbes Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for Goes Missing by Mia Zia, available on Amazon. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com on our 40 podcast platforms, heard in 100 countries, including Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also, Anchor FM, Apple Music, Google Play, as well as Pandora, Podbean, Odyssey, and more. And subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on YouTube channel, BitChute, and Rumble. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. Take us with you on any mobile device. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. We got t-shirts, pop sockets, hoodies, throw pillows, tote bags, and more. Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/me and for great gifts like t-shirts, pop sockets, hoodies, phone cases, and great books like Missing, Once, and Wrinkles. Amazon.com/me and Check it out today and support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. We're here with terrific singer-songwriter from Star Prairie, Wisconsin, Nolen R of the Star Prairie Project there on the Mike Wagner Show. And of course, before we talk about your latest release, New Day at Dawn, featuring Old Dirt Road and Sweet Pea playing at the end of the audio version, you talked about the you'll be an avid music listener back in the day. Who are some of your favorite singers, songwriters, and musicians you listened to and growing up?
Well, I had a really wide swath of artists I listened to, but I was really influenced most by the Beatles. My dad was in the Air Force, and we were stationed over in England in 64 and 65. And so I experienced Beatlemania there. And then when I came back to the States and did it again for another time, but 2 different perspectives of the same thing from 2 different continents was really interesting. But the Beatles changed everything for me. My parents were big music listeners, even though nobody played or was musical in that sense. And I remember growing up listening to Frank Sinatra and Patsy Cline, Roy Orbison, Frank Sinatra, but the first band that really changed everything was the Beatles. And I remember my older sister, she had the phonograph, and we'd go into her in her bedroom, and we'd sit on the bed and we'd go spin these Beatles albums.
I remember, yes, those are great. Just grab records and put them on the record player.
Yep, and we knew every word to every song, and it was magical, and it just opened up a whole new realization of the power of music. And from that point on, I was hooked. And so it was all the Beatles invasion stuff, the Hollies, the Stones, and then the California sound, Laurel Valley crowd, Rod Stewart, David Bowie, Elton John, James Taylor, Carly Simon, Carole King, Stevie Wonder. The music in that period of time was just, and then as he got into the 70s, Pink Floyd, definitely. Yeah. And then there was the whole Motown sound that was taking place. But Pink Floyd was the next one that really rocked my world. And it's amazing because there was a few months back, there was the Let It Be documentary that was released on Disney Plus. And in that documentary, they showed the studio recordings of the album at Apple Studio, and Alan Parsons was there in those early days, and he was with them on top of the roof. Well, fast forward a few years, and he's producing Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. And so I was a huge Alan Parsons fan. And then when he formed the Alan Parsons Project, I love that music too. And I always wanted to develop a song and create a full major record label studio effect of
Nice.
everything, brass strings, horns, anything that, but so that's why it's not that I didn't appreciate John Denver or singer songwriters. It's just that I had a more deeper, fuller yearning to make things a lot more complex. But I can do very simple song like Old Dirt Road. That's a very simple song with a pretty melody. It's not overstated because you want the lyrics, to carry the tune. And then on like Fight or Flight album, you'll see a lot more complex progressive rock, Euro rock,
Mm-hmm.
uh, multi-layered guitars and bass and studio effects, synthesizers, and it's beautiful. And to appreciate the nuances of how it comes out in the end when the flower is unfolded and blooming compared to that seed of when I'm picking up my guitar and I'm going da 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 da, and that's how it works. I mean, you just start playing around and you run into a riff that you create and you go, oh, what was that? Let me back up. What did I do? Oh, I like it. And that's where I
And some of the
spend my
best
day.
ones are creative. You don't have to measure it out. Just comes in your head. You're right.
Yeah, and then you follow it. I mean, it's like songwriting. John uh, John Lennon and his songwriting and Paul McCartney's. It's like John always told George, write a song and finish it. Don't leave it aside. Keep
Mm-hmm.
that when that creative juice is flowing. And that's the same way it is with me. Is that I've structured my life so that there's a song on New Day at Dawn, Practical Man. Used to have a plan, throw the schedule away. Well, I designed my life that I'm retired on this lake, and so that I can write a song at 7 in the morning, 7 at night, midnight, 3 in the afternoon, and it's whenever the creativity hits me. I can feel it coming on, and when you get that creative feeling, it's
Mm-hmm.
like you better pay attention to it because something's coming, and I respond because it's wooing me, and it's the lover beloved, and any artist, any musician that's written song knows exactly what I'm talking about. And there's nothing worse than the thought of forgetting something or you're going to lose it. And I got my iPhone all the time, and if I'm taking a walk and I come up with something, I use that audio recorder and I'll put it down. Da, 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 da.
Oh yeah, these things always do come in handy. That's the thing. They
Yeah.
always come in handy.
And then when you get enough of it to throw together a verse and a chorus, then you don't worry about forgetting it, and then you can build on it. But it's that magic of that initial riff, that original melody, and sometimes the words come right along with it, and sometimes the words come later. But the process when it comes, I give myself full devotion to it, and that's how I write as many songs as I write, and that's how we can put out 6 albums in two
Mm-hmm.
years. Is because we're not a band, we don't gig, we don't tour. It takes tremendous amounts of time to practice and learn new songs, and and it's amazing. I had a friend come up to me and he says, "Oh, that song you wrote a couple of weeks ago, I need you to help me with the chords on it. I was trying to play it and it's like this. What was it?" And it's like, oh, I forgot. I mean, I write a
Mm.
song, I put it aside, I move on. 10 songs ago, I have to go back and look it up
Oh
because I'm
wow.
not performing it. I don't,
Uh-huh.
you don't, and it's like, next, move on, next, move on.
Next, 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 next. It's like an assembly line that keeps going and going and going. It's like you get something you remember, you can just simply pull it up, especially digital. That's the beauty of it.
And there's like a time delay in this New Day at Dawn. Those were songs I wrote a year ago. I have this project that I'm just finishing up. We worked on all winter called The Shining Ones. It's a
Mhm.
concept album on metaphysics and cosmology, and
Wow.
it's a heavy album about the most existential questions. Who are we? Why are we here? What was before? What comes after? What is all this about? And I never before had written a concept album from scratch.
Wow.
I'd written some songs like Fight or Flight that had that nerve to them, and it became a concept album that talked about the devolution of the post World War II social order, of how everything is falling apart. Everything that was developed after 80 years, it's the apathy of this cycle, and it's coming unglued, and it creates all that attendant anxiety and chaos because we're moving to a different place and time. And you
Mhm.
have those that are embracing the newness, and then you have the others that are holding on to dear life to what was. And then you have that conflict. We ain't
Mhm.
giving it up, and we got to go. And and we're going with or without you. And it's plays out in our everyday life. If you
Mm.
you know
So,
watch
so now,
the news.
see, now you say this happened after World War II. This thing started like just coming, just coming unglued, or it's like, hey, let's move on to a new one. And some it's like, hey, let's hold on deal. You say this happened after World War II?
Well, the world social order that my parents' generation formed, that fought in World War II, set up the Marshall Plan and the European economy so that it would end up being uh, the euro zone. That would be the second biggest economic group on the earth. So you have the United States number two, and European economy number two. We created the United Nations, and we created the institutions to safeguard the peace. And we established the order that has been stable up till Ukraine if you don't invade a sovereign country. And that social order held, and it turned into um, what we know today uh, and that's what is changing with the challenges of the environment, the economy, cultural issues, social issues, and ironically enough, in the research of what I was doing with the Shining Ones and the early ascension seeker uh, mystics and the shaman kingdoms, uh, they saw the world as a cyclic world. The Mayan
Mhm.
calendar, for example, that
Right. Uh huh.
64,000 year progression of the equinox, where everything moved through zones in the horoscope, or that is that certain part of it that goes around and the alignment of the planets at certain, they tracked all of that. Well,
Wow.
in our Western order, we look at time as linear. And from the time it began in civilization, what, 5,500 years ago in biblical terms, till today, it's been a slow, steady progression of evolution till we get to the point that we're at today. There was
Mm.
nothing before and there's nothing after. This is what it is. Well,
Mm.
the ancients felt differently. And if you look at these epochs and these cycles, and you take that 64,000 years and you divide it, uh, then it comes into segments of 2,150 years, and which takes us back to the time in history of Christ, the Roman Empire, uh, the Greek Stoics, and the Alexandria mystery schools, and this secret knowledge that had been carried on forever with the Essenes. And it goes back to the Sumerians and the Anunnaki and the cuneiform tablets that were
Wow.
unearthed underneath some of these cities that we see in the Bible. And you see a lot of that today gone wild in conspiracies with things like the reptilians
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going, what the heck is reptilian? But when other than watching Ancient Alien episodes, to study it, I went back to the original source documents. So I'm not going to look at YouTube. If you want to look at these apocalypticists and these ascension seekers, the original source documents, Genesis 6 talks about the watchers, the fallen angels, and then you have the apocryphal text, the Book of Enoch, Volume 1, the watchers, and
Mhm.
then you have the Book of Jubilees, Book of Jasper. These are the books that were written at the time on these subjects, and it's fascinating,
Mm.
and it's quite a story to tell. Anyway, these shining ones were the ones that I kept on hearing that term, and then when I'd follow it back, these were the this ancient pre-diluvian peoples that survived after the flood, and they dispersed to different parts of the world, Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, into Central America and Chile and Peru, uh, and they helped them after the flood, helped the people recover, and they
Mm.
taught them ancient knowledge. They taught them healing, the agriculture, animal husbandry, uh, how to irrigate, textiles, currency, and that's how these civilizations sprang up from Neolithic hut thatched huts to
Mhm.
cities appearing in the Mesopotamian area and flourishing seemingly out of nowhere.
Mm.
And these people were said to be not human. They were said to be like us, but not like us,
Mhm.
to have special gifts of precognition and being able to do other things of an extrasensory nature. And this is what ties them back to Samaria and the cuneiform tablets and
Mhm.
Gilgamesh. So I tried to put this together in a story, and it's like it changes everything. I mean, you look at what we know and you say, well, how do you explain this? Because these are, it's predicated on civilizations existing before the flood. And even though the Bible talks about it, we don't acknowledge that there were civilizations prior to the flood. Uh,
Mhm.
but Enoch himself, he was a patriarch before flood. That's what Genesis says. He was
Right,
he
yes.
was the father of Methuselah, and so it's like before the floods. And you also see that these people lived very old ages, and
Oh, yes.
and then it was like, wait a minute, you start seeing that the Bible said in Genesis that part of our punishment and everything is that we're not going to live past 120. And so you see, it's like this DNA lockdown on a certain hybrid aspect of Homo sapien after Noah. But before that, there were people
Mhm.
and there were civilizations. And Plato talked about Atlantis and Mu and Lemuria and different things of that aspect. But it's you have to believe in order to think back in their terms that there was actually high civilizations that existed at that time,
Mhm.
and that officially doesn't exist
Mhm.
in the books. But when you look at Genesis and the angels, and then you start seeing these lines of these shining ones and tracing them back in the lineage, the Essenes, they pop up as the Essenes right in that period, 200 at Qumran, the Dead Sea Scrolls. That period they were there was 200 BCE to 100 CE.
Wow.
Jesus is right in the middle of that most. They were there till they were wiped out by the Roman legions in 67, 68 when they came through uh, Masada, uh, Jericho. They but these Essenes separated themselves from the temple Jews, the Sadducees and the Pharisees, and they lived in these communal, austere camps. And their documents, we found them. They're the Dead Sea Scrolls, and what they wrote about is their ascension paths and how they were dedicating their lives to their bodies being transformed into these angelic light bodies where they would ascend into heaven to the city of Zion. And they claimed that they actually lived and spoke with these angels. And then it comes back. Who are the angels? It goes back to the shining ones. And you go back to Quetzalcoatl in Mexico, the plumed serpent priest. And it was the same thing, the same wisdom, the same ascension messages. And so it's wiped out with the Essenes, and then it pops up in Christianity with the Cathars. 1200 years later. The Rosicrucians. It's the same thing. And you know where the essence of the secret to the mystery school is most famously laid out before our eyes?
How do you like that?
Serpent on the Mount.
That is amazing. Of course, this led us to one of your songs, "To the King," and tell us about that.
Yes, exactly. So anyway, that's what I was doing this winter. I was trying to take all of this esoteric thought and put it into music. And I thought, oh my, we're never going to get this done. Oh my God. You wouldn't believe it, Mike. We were spitting out songs. Oh my God. We were backed up 4 or 5. It was just flowing. It was like, it was meant, the ethers, to release this. And this music is the most incredible symphonic rock sound with the voices of Sandrine and Marcello. When you try to, I'm trying to replicate this Kundalini experience of when this coiled serpent of energy explodes and rises along the spinal cord into this enlightenment experience. Okay, let me work on that for a while. But you wouldn't believe what we came up with. It's just the first, and it is so amazing. It is so amazing because Flight or Fight was so different than New Day at Dawn. And I told my wife, Fight or Flight was before therapy. New Day and Dawn is after therapy.
How do you like that? How do you like that? and of course, there's a couple of tracks we'd like to talk about from New Day at Dawn, along with Fight or Flight. You're with Nolen Chu and the Star Prairie Project. Listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by SoundWeb Studios, and brought to you by official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson Missing. We'll be back with Nolen Chu of the Star Prairie Project after this time. We're back, amazing singer-songwriter from Star Prairie, Wisconsin, Nolen Chu of the Star Prairie Project there in the Mike Wagner Show. And, of course, he's had his 2 acclaimed albums, Fight or Flight and also New Day at Dawn. And, of course, talking about New Day at Dawn, besides Old Dirt Road, you also have My 944 and Buffalo Bob and Sweet Pea. And tell us about some of those.
Well, I guess my favorite is Buffalo Bob. I actually wrote the song about a friend of mine. He lived in Greenville, South Carolina, Bob Barron. He was an investment banker, worked for Merrill Lynch, and just quit it all. He got divorced, quit his job, and moved up to the mountains, bought a cabin, lived up there with his dog, and opened up a fireworks shop. And he was just, he was one of these magnificent, enduring personalities. He just loved life, and he loved people, and he loved to talk about people, and he was a no BS type of guy, and he just sort of checked out of the world, went back to like what would have happened in 1969 in the Summer of Love or whatever.
Oh yeah, the beloved Summer of '69. That was my first memories of it. So
so that's what the song's about, and of course people writing the reviews and already looking at the song, they're already talking about this cult of personality, Buffalo Bob. Was he a likable louse, or was he a guru that really had it figured out, or would we really like to do it, or do we have the guts to pull the plug and step out, but that's what it was. that's what it was really about, as sort of a counterculture, not working for the man, type of an attitude. But of course, in reality, most of us can't do what Buffalo Bob did, but of course, that's what makes the character so endearing. Because I think a lot of us would like
Well,
would
one day
like
we
to-
could be Buffalo Bob's as well too, and of course a bit more on Fight or Flight. You had a reality check time, and also we have My Freedom, Thinking About You, and a few more. Maybe just tell us a few more about those songs and when you inspired to write them.
Well, that album, like I said, we wrote those songs about year and a half, 2 years ago, and coming out of the pandemic, and we were really trying to grab that raw emotion of the chaos and anxiety, and that was gripping people, and people were, and the uncertainty, and that feeling of normalcy was gone, and from here on it would be something different, and everything wouldn't be the same or good, same again, good or bad. And reality check time was about looking around us, at our politics and what we've been through. And it was like, pinch me. What I need a reality.
Or slap me silly.
Yeah, there's like Earth 1 and Earth 2, and everybody's living in bubbles and talking past each other. And it's like, there's no we anymore. There's just they,
Right. Or
And
it's, me, I, all that. Yes.
exactly. And My Freedom, I wrote about, sometimes, for political reasons, some of these symbols are hijacked, like the word patriot or the flag. And it means things to different people, and certain political sides grab some of that and they claim it as theirs. And it's like, I'm not having that. That's my flag too. And I don't care I'm not giving it to you. It's mine, and my definitions of freedom, and my 25 years of service in the Air Force. I know what patriotism really means. And I understand duty, honor, and country, and don't take these sacred images and turn them into political fodder.
Right. Yeah. Or merchandise, whatever it is. Yeah.
Right. And but it's all very high energy. At the end of the album, you almost take a breath and go, woof, wow. And so New Day at Dawn was like, okay, breath of fresh air, warm breeze in the springs blowing through, and it's like sunshine popped out from behind the clouds. And it's just a lovely, light Americana folk country, 180 degrees different than Fight or Flight. They're both beautiful albums, but they're totally different. And I'm asked all the times, how can you do that? How can you write Fight or Flight and release New Day at Dawn? And because it's like people are getting a whiplash. And it's like, well, that's duality, isn't it? There's an up, there's a down, there's an in, there's an out.
That's right. Yeah. And of course, up, down, everything got to come out, whatever, too. And of course, lastly, we'll be playing Sweet Pea at the end of the audio version of the Mike Wagner Show. And tell us more about that song, what inspired you to write Sweet Pea.
Well, Sweet Pea's just I wrote that song in 10 minutes.
How you like that?
It was just one of those songs that just flowed out so perfect. It's a simple melody, arrangement. I was thinking of somebody struggling with an addiction and trying to hang on, in their life and their family, and making promises, and I mean, these are the emotional aspects of our life that people can relate to. And so I just started writing the song about Sweet Pea, don't leave me. And then I said, yeah, I'll throw drinking in there. That's probably it. I'm climbing up the hill, and and I'm fighting for your love, and it's not a game anymore. And it just came. It was just one of those beautiful, and it 2 minutes and 59 seconds, like an old radio. That's what Tommy Titka told me. That's the perfect single. 2 because it's a sweet melody, great lyrics, duet between Ivy and Rudiker, who just nailed it. And it just leaves you with a good feeling.
And certainly does as well. We'll be playing those at the end of the audio version. Meantime, where can we find all your music at, Nolen?
Well, you can you can search me on any platform, Star Prairie Project, on iTunes, Apple, Deezer, anywhere. And you can get me at the starprairieproject.net website. But we're everywhere. We're on every streaming platform. Google us, you'll find us, and check us out. Listen to our music, like it, share it. That we would love.
And especially in Star Prairie, Wisconsin, of all places. Yes.
That's right.
You got it. We're here with Nolen Chu of the Star Prairie Project, multi-talented singer-songwriter from Star Prairie, Wisconsin, here on the Mike Wagner Show. Just a few more things, Nolen. We'd love to have you back on. Just keep us updated. What else can we expect from you guys in 2023 and beyond?
Well, like I said, I have that Shining Ones album we're finishing up now. So after New Day at Dawn, the plan was to release that maybe at the end of the year around the holidays. And I'm working now with Tom Titka, Rudiker, and Ivy on another Americana album. We're about halfway done with it. So I got something that's a little rock and roll, and then I got something else that's a little country folky coming, and that'll be 2 more albums after this one that's out Friday. So there's a lot of fresh material. And now we have a catalog of our discography of 6 albums now, and they're all relatively new. Our first one's 2020. So we've reached the point now when somebody discovers one of our songs, they can go back and find a lot more, and then anticipate new releases coming frequently for the next 2 years out.
We're certainly looking forward to doing that as well, too. And we'll talk more about that. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
Oh, John Lennon. John Lennon, by far. Just ever since I was a kid, his thoughtful, introspective lyrics, and Paul McCartney too. But I can relate to Lennon's archetype more. He was a rebellion, but yet, it was all about peace. You look about the Beatles and the revolution and how their long hair and they're tearing apart the fabric of society. You fast forward, what'd they write about? Peace, love, community, getting along, passing it on. It was a beautiful, beautiful message.
Yep. Giving peace a chance, and all you need is love. That's right.
That's right. That's right.
And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Well, the best advice I can give them from my history is never give up. It's not too late. I can pick up a guitar at 52 years old with no inkling, no clue. It's a miracle. It's magic right before my eyes. Never thought it could happen, much less be writing songs and releasing music. So if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody.
That's a very good point. We'll all keep in mind on that one. If you can pick up a car at 52, we can do the same thing. We're here with Nolen Chu of the Star Prairie Project with New Day at Dawn and a Fighter Flight here on the Mike Wagner Show. Nolen, very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. I learned a lot from you. Looking forward to having you again soon. Just keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Live have you back. Once again, what's your website? How do people contact you? And where can people
StarPrairieProject.net. Google us on any one of your streaming platforms, Star Prairie Project. We got 6 albums and plenty more coming.
We will certainly check that out. Once again, Nolen, very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Looking forward to having you again soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Live have you back. Wish you all best. And Nolen, you definitely have a great future ahead of you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.